Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Data Unchained. I'm your host, Molly Presley. If this is your first time joining Data Unchained, let me tell you a little bit about the podcast. As the world has evolved from mainframes to data centers to cloud computing, edge devices, and now we're talking about AI everywhere, data has become increasingly decentralized. It's being created all around the globe, processed and then consumed by end users and by machines and businesses and applications all around the globe. What we dig into on Data Chains are both the problems as well as the solutions and really new business use cases you can get out of using your decentralized data. We have two really fun guests today. First, I'll mention we're at the NAB trade show in Las Vegas. So we're here in the hub of media and entertainment community and creating rich media, video, interactive content, and have some really fun guests for you today. So first off, Steve Gordon, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Steve is a really interesting guest for the show. We had on Adam Savage one time, talking about working with remote employees and managing remote teams. Steve has a way to really engage users remotely through comics, through illustration. So Steve is an illustrator, a very well-renowned one. Tell us a little bit about your history, please.
Well, I've been in the entertainment industry, mostly animation, for the last 47-ish years. I've worked on a variety of different movies and TV shows and publishing things. From the very beginning of my career, I've worked on things that have included superheroes of a type. And throughout it, I've worked on X-Men Evolution as a character designer and one of the directors, on Ultimate Avengers in the same capacity, and worked on Swan Princess, worked on all types of different related things, as well as preschool and comic book type publishers. I did a series of children's books featuring the DC comic characters like Superman and Batman. And I also have dabbled in comic books such as this.
And your current project is directing a television show, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. I'm currently one of the directors of a preschool show for Disney Junior called Ariel, which features the Little Mermaid as a young girl.
Well, certainly my little girl Hadley would be delighted to know you're working on that. More mermaid content, the better. And then Trip Hunter, you run corporate marketing for Hammerspace and have a lot of really interesting connections into the space of television, animation. Tell us a little bit about your history.
So I'm lucky enough to be able to work with you and at Hammerspace and run corporate marketing. But my background, one of the founders and CEO of Silicon Valley ComicCon initially was Steve Wozniak, and then with Adam Savage, brought him in as a partner. And so that's how Steve and I met each other, through the Artist Alley section of Silicon Valley ComicCon. So that's a little bit of my background.
So it's fun to bring the world of creativity that you have into the Hammerspace marketing for sure.
Yeah.
Before we talk about that though, what is a Hammerspace? We get asked that all the time. Folks who come more from the space of comics and animation, is a very familiar term, but it's not necessarily to the media and entertainment or technology community. So what is a Hammerspace?
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's this great parallel between the Hammerspace, the technology company, and what a Hammerspace is, right? So a Hammerspace is this extra-dimensional, instantly accessible storage area where cartoon characters can just reach into thin air and pull out the tool that they need at that exact moment. And that's really what Hammerspace is also all about with data. It allows you to get your data at the exact moment you need it wherever you are. So it's this really interesting parallel. And that led to this idea of, well, what if we were to create a comic book that is true to both of those stories, that tells our story as Hammerspace, but also tells our story from a cartoon point of view?
And I think it's interesting that a lot of customers, end users, technologists can conceptually understand what Hammerspace is doing, but it feels almost like magic to them. That it's like, you can do that, but that's like magic. That's part of what you wanted to convey with this, right?
Yes, it's really well said. It is. I think what Hammerspace, it is a superpower. And when you bring Hammerspace into your environment, you embody that superpower, and you become a superhero.
Okay.
Right? And so that was the premise of creating this character, Data Dynamo.
Who's sitting behind me right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, Data Dynamo.
And yeah, so that's really made a lot of sense to us in telling this story in a very different way.
Okay. So how did the creative process work? So, you and I talked about, let's make sure we're really owning and embracing the Hammerspace term, but not, what it really means, and helping organizations understand how they can really make data, no matter where it resides, an asset they can use anywhere. Know what data they have, overcome some challenges that are really massive in their environments, like data silos. We decided, let's embrace it, and then we created comic books. So how did the conversation start with you and Steve?
You reached out to me, I believe, through a mutual acquaintance, and asked if I was interested in discussing it and working on this, and I said yes.
You did. I think you said, just keep the script short.
Well, yeah.
So we didn't want a data sheet. We wanted something better.
Yeah.
Originally, you were planning on a 3-page thing, but by the time I saw the script, I said, this is too long for 3 pages.
Yes.
So we went to a 4. So.
And I think that's one of the challenges of this format is our technology is quite complicated, and it is hard to get the point across of what we do. And so to be able to distill that down to 4 pages of a comic book was a lot of back and forth between the two of us.
Sure.
Yeah.
So tell us about, you've created Marvel characters, you've created characters who are superheroes and that we've all known and brought into our homes. Tell us about Data Dynamo and kind of what do you like about him and his attributes? Kind of how did you go about creating Data Dynamo?
Well, Tripp and I had discussions about what type of the character he really was and where he was coming from and what he needed to do, which are essential ideas that need to be incorporated before I start coming up with designs. So we kind of played with it a little bit, and we felt that he was obviously a young guy who was frustrated with his job and the conditions that he was working under, and that he was given the power to be Data Dynamo, and he needed to be very almost Spider-Man-like in his abilities and such, as far as movement and flexibility.
Okay, I like that. I hadn't really heard that, but the idea of being nimble and dynamic and able to stretch and do new things.
Yeah, we did a whole bunch of adjectives, like what are the qualities of Data Dynamo, and so that's kind of where we started. Right. Agility and performance and all of these things that Hammerspace embodies, and so Dynamo had to embody those things too. So that was key. And I think one of the key things that we landed on, and I think we discussed it too, was Dynamo isn't some superhero that blows in and solves the problem or saves the day. Dynamo is an IT guy who wants to make a difference, wants to change the way data is shared and used and consumed, and is able to put a suit on that gives him that superpower. So anyone can be a Dynamo, which is really cool.
It is a cool idea, and I think it is so relevant that an IT person, I used to be one, I was an Oracle DBA, and I worked for a service provider, and I got those tickets where, hey, we need to create this new table, oh, we need to do this, there's just a constant influx of requests, and any IT person has dealt with that, and you feel almost powerless, that more work is coming, your budgets aren't getting bigger, you're not getting a bigger team, and yet you want to make everyone happy, and it's a really hard situation. And the frustration of Dave, the IT admin in the comic book, really conveys that. It's like, I want to do a good job, but I just don't have the tools. Yeah. And I really think that's what we're homing in on with Data Dynamo is, to help Dave, who is the IT guy, and also to help the business to have this new superpower that they didn't even know existed before.
Right.
And I love the idea. So how do you unpack? How do you become Data Dynamo? Maybe from a illustrator's perspective, we'll talk about that first.
Well, we were looking for a specific type of look and armor, and you guys had sort of a pre-concept look that you wanted me to kind of jump off of. So we knew he was going to have like a helmet with a visor, and certain armor-like look to his costuming. So we kind of played with that. We came up with I came up with 3 or 4 samples for Trip to look at, and we kind of Frankensteined a couple of them together, and ended up with something that everyone was happy with. So
nice. And then from your perspective, Trip, bringing Hammerspace, the technology, and becoming a Data Dynamo as an IT admin, what does that look like in more of a enterprise or IT environment? Like, what is the outcome of becoming a Data Dynamo?
Well, so that's a great question, because I was going to this page, and I'll just kind of hold it up. These are the characters in the book, and our arch enemy, the one we defeat, is Silo. Right, and
so Silo's the big green-looking nasty
the big
guy,
green and red, looking guy, and he exists in another dimension, and Dynamo travels to that dimension to free Data and to kill Silo, I guess, And I think that's one of the things that the story conveys, is it's his journey from being a frustrated IT guy and replication and data silos, to slowing down the process of his day, to breaking that apart and freeing him, to become the IT guy that he wants to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So this volume of the Data Dynamo and Data Unchained was really focused on breaking silo.
Yeah.
And the analog to the Hammerspace technology certainly being that customers want to know all the data that they have and be able to use it when and where they want to. Right. So maybe they want to get it to remote AI clusters for processing large language models. Maybe it's a remote artist that wants to collaborate in flame technologies on, coloring in a film environment. But the idea of having your data siloed and isolated is just such a huge challenge in slowing down certainly business productivity, and then the IT guy gets caught in the middle, right? Trying to be the human that's managing between the data silos and the entire business and all these machines of compute farms. And it's a very frustrating environment that we are addressing with Hammerspace, right? So can you introduce the characters and maybe the story a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So we have this woman who runs the IT department. Her name is Molly.
The thorny
I don't know how that happened, but it did. And we have this frustrated IT guy whose name is Dave. No relation to our CEO at all. It just happened. Dynamo we've discussed. Anvil is a character we haven't discussed, and Anvil is a product of ours, but she kind of is like the shadowy figure that heads up the Justice League, if you will, and she is the one who identifies Dave as this perfect target. We actually
so we can actually become Anvil ourselves a little bit.
And these
Anvil's
are
glasses.
Anvil's
nice.
glasses. And so here's Anvil here. And then Silo, right, who is our arch enemy whom we're trying to defeat. And so Dave gets frustrated about the silos and data replication and all the governance things that are slowing down his productivity. And he leaves the office to go blow off some steam, and goes to a coffee shop, and he's on the phone explaining to Molly why he's frustrated, and he meets Anvil. And she gives him this suit, and she identifies him as somebody who has the power and the drive and the desire to be better.
Okay.
And so she gives him this suit and says, we believe that you're the right person to go to this extra-dimensional space and confront Silo and destroy him.
Okay.
And so he goes on this journey.
And we truly believe that all IT people, and no, it matter the industry or what their plight may be, can become data dynamos, and Hammerspace is a tool that can help with that, right?
That's
right. Anvil, our amazing metadata servers, gives them a lot of insights into the data across silos.
Yep.
And all they have to do is just bring us into their environments, and a whole new universe of access to data opens up, right?
Brilliantly said.
Awesome. So please. So as you're starting to think this through, Steve, we have a very technical IT product. Was it a challenge to put it into this kind of format?
Well, working with Tripp made it very simple. He had certain ideas in his head, even if they were kind of nebulous at the time. And, creating like Anvil, he kind of saw her as Mobius from The Matrix and stuff. So that allowed me to kind of lean in that specific direction with the long overcoat and the boots and the, leather look and stuff. So I kind of had somewhere to go with her. And then I just, once again, gave him I think 3 or 4 different versions of her. And I think this one was actually not Frankenstein together. This was the final one, or maybe
it was.
Maybe we added the glasses to this one or something.
And changed the color of her clothes to kind of align with our brand. And,
sure.
Right. Makes sense.
So, and obviously Molly was very difficult. I had no idea what she should look like. Whereas for Silo, I mean, I forget what your description was, but it made me think immediately of going to like a Jack Kirby character like Darkseid or Thanos or something.
That's what where we started.
Thanos,
I was like, I kind of see it as Thanos, this big hulking, scary person in the sky.
Yeah,
so that's kind of where I went with it. And I think, it kind of looks the right way, and it feels like he shouldn't have any difficulty defeating Data Dynamo, but obviously he didn't know any better. So,
well, and I think it's definitely true. Data scientists, data engineers, IT administrators, the data silo or isolated data sets is tough to conquer, and it does seem kind of scary, and it might seem hopeless if you're not a Data Dynamo, right?
Right. If you don't have Hammerspace.
So what's next? Are we, this is a really fun way to market for sure. And here at NAB, we've had a lot of customers coming by and saying, wow, this is fun, this is engaging, but also, I get it. Yeah, that's a problem I have. How does this play into your marketing strategy at Hammerspace?
Well, what's interesting about it is ultimately we're not fooling anybody. This is a marketing material, right? It's a way for people to understand what Hammerspace does. But it's a very different way, especially in this space.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see a lot of marketing done this way. And I think one of the testaments to it is people come by and they ask for it to be autographed by Steve, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is so cool! Can I get one for my kids?"
And they want to read it on the airplane on the way home.
And they'll read it on the airplane.
I guarantee the data sheets we give out do not get read on the airplane.
Right. So to create something that ultimately fulfills all of the check boxes of what marketing should be, which is education and entertainment, is really rewarding and fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we want to build it into our brand a bit more. This obviously it says Volume 1 on it.
Yes, so I can't wait to see what happens next.
There'll be a Volume 2. We'll bring Steve back. And
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for the fun that you've put into, what can be kind of mundane in technology marketing. That's going to make people happy. I can't wait to bring my copy home to my little girl and to my husband, who wants the Steve Gordon signature specifically, and wished he had sent his Marvel comics, apparently. He told me that last night. But this is fun stuff, and Steve, it was great getting to know you through this process. I'm looking forward to Volume 2. And Tripp, great work on putting it all together.
Thanks, Molly.
All right, thank you so much. And we'll certainly in the show notes be putting a copy of the Data Unchained PDF. So if you weren't here at the show and don't have a physical copy, you can download and check it out. And we look forward to engaging with you. If you have any other questions, check out hammerspace.com. Thanks for listening to Data Unchained, powered by Hammerspace. To learn more, visit hammerspace.com. If you have a guest you would like to hear on the show, email me at molly@hammerspace.com.